So I'm Julia Griffin. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an intuitive healer. I think that we all have an inner self that's really a beautiful, wonderful part of us that we move in and out of. I was always intuitive. I always meditated. I think I started in my early 20s meditating, studying different philosophies and things. And then I met real life wolves and I lived with them. And amazingly, they taught me all this information about energy. And I found that what they taught me works for other people as well. It completely changed me, my life, who I am. It pulled together that entire information. If I want to, I can hear what people are thinking or what their soul is saying. I can hear animals and I can hear plants. Now, I'm like every intuitive, it's much more difficult for me to hear for myself what is the right thing to do, but it's not that difficult for other people, with other people. And I think that we all have this amazing part of ourselves. And you can find out more on my website. There are a lot of blog posts. There's a free ebook you can write to me. And my website is onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. I wanted to talk about finding peace and calm because it seems to me that that's one of the most important things in this time is not to be moved by everything that's going on or all of the emotions that we might feel from the world or from other people. Because I think all of us who have a meditation practice know you can feel absolutely wonderful and then talk to someone who's falling apart and you don't feel that way so much. And I often have that experience, probably at least weekly in my life. And so this has been an important question to me is how do I continue to become more peaceful and calm and to stay connected with the inner self? So all of the beautiful things that you have felt in your life, those magical moments when you fell in love, when you could just look outside and you were in an illuminated place and everything was beautiful around you, or you felt particularly alive at the beach. Those are moments that you experienced your inner self. You may have gotten it because suddenly you had more abundance, or suddenly you had a career boost and you found something you really wanted to do. Or maybe you just kept that state of higher spirituality for a few days and moved into the flow. Now, if we can keep that movement in with the inner self into the really beautiful parts of life, then we actually go into awakening. We are able to find that inner self, to find that peace, to find that beauty. And I think also to apply it to more aspects of our lives. So that's a thought to start with is how can you have more of that beauty in your life? I can tell you that the more you seek it, the more you will find it. And that's an important thing. So right now you can say, I just want more of that. So let's do a quick exercise. I think it's more fun to do exercises than to just talk about things. So close your eyes. Imagine all the energy in the room coming into you. Imagine all the energy of the day moving back into you. And think of a time, even if it was just a few days or weeks or months, when life looked and felt lovely. And really hold that energy. Now remember a time when you were outdoors and the natural world was incredibly beautiful. Now focus on a time when you were in alignment and harmony with another person. If you loved them, feel the love. Feel the warmth and the pleasure of these experiences. Just let that flow through you and then come back into the moment. if you notice, you will immediately feel just a little bit quieter. So here are some more times that we're aware of when we expand into the inner self. Sometimes we sort of have a burst of genius and we know the answer. We just suddenly know what it is. That's a connection with the inner self. And maybe something like you've asked yourself all your life, why do things work this way? Why do I feel this way? Other people don't feel this way. How can I make this work? Okay, the inner self leads you to move away from the past. And that doesn't mean that those memories aren't there. It's just that you'll find you don't dwell on them as often, and into a fulfilled future. Communing with the inner self leads to higher consciousness. Now, we know that if we think about awakening, if we think about the inner self, and we meditate, and doesn't have to be formal meditation. Quantum physics actually teaches that life begins to respond in a different way. Now, what's that different way? We want to go to a higher, better, more aligned place. We want to go to a more beautiful place. And that's where quantum physics comes in. So I can give you a good example that's super simple. That is, all of us have certain places in traffic where we simply can't turn or we always get stuck. Well, I can guarantee you, if you're willing to visualize that you don't, it won't happen. We have certain energy blocks in certain places. When those blocks aren't there, we don't experience the conflict or the feeling or being stuck. For example, I think for all of us, if we think about our friends, we can say, they're stuck here or they're stuck here. But it's not as easy to see it for ourselves or to move through it. Pretty simple to tell other people some of the time. Okay, the sensation of the inner self begins to replace the normal sensations of life. So what does that mean? Well, instead of thinking that something is difficult or something that's hard, you start to tell yourself you can do it. Instead of thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this, you begin to imagine that you're meeting people who help you, or you suddenly find the answer. And those are some of the early phases of moving into your inner self and moving out of some of the energies that we feel in the world. So let's do a few exercises to feel inner peace and calm. So I want you to imagine that you have a thermostat on the wall, one of those that has the numbers in it, just the numbers in it. And that being calm and being connected to your inner self, let's say it goes between 1 and 90. Now close your eyes and ask yourself, where is your connection with the inner self? And right now, I'm somewhere between 65 and 68. So I'm going to punch into that thermostat. I'm going to punch it up to, let's say, 79. So see your thermostat going up too. And that's the higher number that's going to bring in your consciousness. Now that may sound as though that's just such a simple exercise that it won't work. But I guarantee you that I've worked with many exercises, both complex and simple, for a very long time. And some of the simplest ones work best, particularly if you practice this several times a day. For example, we could use that for a higher vibration. Between 1 and 90, if the room needs to be on a higher vibration, what would we take it up to? Okay, so let's do a brief meditation on nature. Let's close our eyes. Let's imagine that we're in a beautiful place. Let's just say choose the mountains or the beach. And we can feel the wind. If there's water, we can go and put our feet in. We can feel the flowers around us and see all that beauty. And take a second, become aware that nature wants you there. and ask nature, ask the trees or the sand or the waves or the wind to connect with you and to bring in a sense of calmness and peace. And just feel that for a moment. And breathe that in. Now, another thing that you can do, and let's go ahead and do this. Actually, I forgot to do this last night, but I usually do it before I go to bed. And that is that I tell myself that tomorrow is going to be a much happier day, a better day. It's easier to get things done. I feel very energized and relaxed. I'm very happy to be alive. And when I'm doing this, I'll go ahead. So tomorrow's Sunday where I am. I know that it's not where some of you are. So I might say, and I'll go ahead and send some beautiful light and colors and shapes to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So let's do that. Let's send light and love to tomorrow. And it's a happier day and we're feeling better. Let's send light and love to the next 3 days after that. Okay, if there's something that's difficult for you right now, whatever it is, imagine that it's easier for the next 4 days. And when you think about it, say, I really wished and projected that this would be easier. And then see how that works for you. So we talked before that the burst of genius and unexpected answers are part of the inner self. We know we're connected when that's happening. And we just made a conscious effort to connect with our inner self to make the next 2 or 3 days better, to bring in more of a feeling of happiness and peace that are not normally there. It's your inner self that does this. We're all familiar with the experiments in quantum physics with the tiny particles of light. When we add a person to the experiment, whatever their expectation is of how those particles of light are going to move, are going to react, that's what happens. Now, think of your everyday self who plans to go through life a certain way. Add your inner self, the part of you that has light, that has love. That's the observer that we're adding in our lives. When you open to the inner self, this is one thing that's really great, is your perception expands. You begin to believe that more and more good things are possible. And life opens to your new experiences. Your talents, gifts, and success come partially from intuition, and that's associated with the inner self. So really high intuition, the good part, comes from the heart and the inner self. So let's talk a little bit about expanding consciousness. Rumi said, there's a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. That's your inner self, your intuition, or your heart. And the power of the heart is very diverse. It's how we hear intuition and find out what our personal truth is. So, for example, let's say that what is true, there are great universal truths, but we all have our personal truths. For example, the restaurant that's perfect for you and your body and your physicality may not be right for me, but with greater perception, I'll know if that aligns with me or not. So we find resonance through that. We also hear the universe and the inner self through the heart. And it is our authentic presence. If we're looking at the chakra system, it's in the middle. So it's creating balance between the physical self and the spiritual self in the upper chakras. Very important to learn about it. So since the heart tells us if our desire is right, if we're trying to manifest, if the direction that we're going in is right, It's important. So let's go ahead and work on our heart. Now, I like to make the heart chakra just a big circle in the center of my chest. And I see a beautiful pink ray coming in. I sort of like to close my eyes. You can too. We're just going to see a huge wave of pink light coming into the chest area. This big circle that we've drawn, the heart chakra. So feel that beautiful pink light. Feel it coming in and healing the heart and lifting the heart, bringing in joy and connection and peace. So let another wave of that come in. Love, joy, peace, happiness. And there are many, many hand positions in yoga that have to do with accessing that heart chakra, particularly with some of the older sciences or philosophies, because it can bring us that happiness, that joy, that connection with other things. So come back if you've been feeling this and notice if the room feels a bit softer, a bit more aligned with you, and let that come into you. And you can practice this exercise anytime. Now here we put up some of the pink light so you can feel that or have your own image of it. So feel that again, choose your pink color, let it come in. Feel unconditional universal love flowing in. And let additional light come into this space and feel the love within you. So another thing that takes us out of stress and puts us in a beautiful place is connection. That connection comes from the inner self. And universal energies are composed of light. So when you can feel your light and you can feel the light of the people around you, there is a very big connection. When we've been meditating and our auric field is filled with light, the universe can hear us more easily. You know, if we're saying to ourselves, gosh, I just wish I had a clear answer on this, that's where the change comes in. It brings harmony and answers. And this is from continuing to practice, right? Sometimes you'll be very lucky and it will just come in or you will just know, but usually it takes some practice with it. Okay, when the more you can interrupt what normal life feels like, and that may feel like people talking, expressing their opinion, hearing things in the news, going to work, doing things you don't want to do. The strange thing is that when you can interrupt that through a connection with the inner self, no matter what you're doing, it becomes completely different. Whether you're watering your plants or folding up towels or doing some aspect of work that you'd prefer not to do. So that is a fun thing to practice. Okay, this is something that is not usually talked about, but I think it's important. And that is neutralizing the negative energy that comes into your life. Now, I could pretend like this doesn't happen, but we all know that it does. And personally, I think if we're going to really move into a high love vibration, we have to have boundaries and ways of dealing with this. So there are outside influences. That would be like world problems, world news, economical problems. So what do you do about that? Okay, I just simply read the news. And I usually do it every other day. And I made up this marvelous story that always works for me, which is that if it's something that I need to know with the world, someone will call me and tell me, or I will see it on Facebook or in my email. And it always works for me. So I don't have to read very often about what's going on in the world. I do know because I want to be aware and I want to know how it affects other people, but it's not like watching a news stream. And I want to explain to you why it's important. And I know you'll get this right away. If you're truly manifesting a change, you have to have a visual in your mind, and you focus on that visual with a positive emotion. Now, in our culture, it's much easier for some reason to feel a negative emotion than it is to see a positive emotion. So if we're thinking about the news, and let's say we have 1 million, probably more, people watching the news, they're seeing the visuals, and they're putting forth negative energy. That's what you're immersing yourself in. It's sort of like, I guess, like national prayer or something. But I don't do that. I read it. Okay. Other people's energy. You probably already know you have friends that uplift you and friends that don't. And you feel their thoughts and their emotions, right? So you can send a color, like light blue light is very good for making people calmer. If it's a good friend of yours and you're close enough, you can send pink light or love. You can see it differently. So if someone's suffering and I care about them, I try to see their life differently for them. Or you can make a change and you can say, I can only be with this person for a couple hours, but they're my friend. They love me. All those things will make changes with that. So patterns. We all have habitual patterns or blocks. I have them, you have them. We see where everyone else has them, right? So if we really want a change, we can see ourselves doing the opposite. We can observe ourselves and we can use positive visualizations. And it does take a while for that to change, but I can tell you through my personal experiences and with working with very, very many people that it makes a big difference. You can do this. So if you're saying to yourself, like, for example, I want to move, or why am I stuck in this situation at work? You catch yourself and you see it differently. And even doing it 1 or 2 times a day can make a big difference. Now, there's another kind of negative energy, which is not necessarily bad, and it's called positive anxiety. So this occurs when we're expanding, when we're doing something that we haven't done before. So what you have to do is focus on the desired outcome instead of how it feels in the moment. There are some things that I do that always give me anxiety, but I say, look how many times you do it. You've always gotten through it. You're always glad that you did it. Or even if you're not, you know to do it a different way in the future. So in a way, it's a sort of freedom, but you're going to have to discern between the two. Okay. Overcoming karma. Okay, karma is simply blocks. If we're looking at the Vedic system, or we know that all of us come in here with a certain amount of karma. It may be that certain things don't happen the right way. It may be that we tend to do the wrong things in certain situations. It can also be from our childhood or from traumatic experiences. It separates us from source and from our inner desires. Because wherever we have karma, we want to experience life differently, right? I know I do. So it's an obstacle that we first overcome by responding instead of reacting. So you would observe, you would see it differently, and you would believe you can change it. So if karma is energy that's moving in the wrong direction, we could say that those moments that we're connected to the inner self, those moments when we send light, when we observe, that would be like money in the bank that makes things work out. And our karma, even if we're born with it or it's from past lives, it's like negative energy in a bank. So every time we spend any time realizing that we can change ourselves or perceive things differently, we're getting free. I don't see it so much now as good or bad, just that it's something that we all work with, and that the more we work on it, the easier it will become for all of us. This was when I talked earlier about the light particles. So part of changing karma is changing what you believe. When you observe old patterns or karma, the pattern will start to change. As soon as that pattern changes, even the smallest amount, you'll know that you're creating success with that. And our anxiety and tension level goes down so much when we start to break the pattern with that. And keep in mind that only the inner self can observe. So I want to talk a little bit about higher energy, because we know that a higher energy level and a higher frequency level can take us out of karma and take us into a frequency where things start to happen in a more beneficial way. So very quickly, we all probably have had healing experiences when we suddenly began to get better. We probably had someone send us energy or write a beautiful letter to us or something like that, and it lifted us up. Now, it has been measured through various scientific devices. People who meditate and who go deeply into awakening, they can see on these devices that it actually goes way up when people who do this all the time focus. The numbers do. Higher energy is always going to come through with meditative states and positive change. It doesn't mean you're always going to get to the best place with your meditation, but it does mean if you keep trying, it's going to happen. Higher energy or frequency is also associated with love and light, as well as yoga, qigong, and specific healing and meditative frequencies and techniques. So it feels better. We've all had a time when we were with someone who really loved us that maybe we haven't seen for a while, and we could feel that love. And the second we felt that love, maybe we felt encouraged. Maybe we felt energized. Now, if you pursue this, obviously you'll have greater physical, emotional, and mental energy. So here are some ways of changing your response. Rewrite it and reframe it. As I said, we all have things in our personal lives that tend to repeat. So if I say I always forget my list before I go out, I'll change that to I always either remember my list so perfectly that I don't need it, or I never forget it. So see it and feel it differently. I tend to have anxiety when I do new things. I changed it to the anxiety makes me go very deeply into what I do. And the anxiety also makes me get really excited about what I'm doing. Mantras, make up little phrases that always work for you. One of the things I tell myself is most things are easier than you think they are. Most things are easier once you get started. Life is beautiful. The universe loves me. You have to change them around. Okay, visualize the desired end result. Let's say that there are certain meetings that you go to, and it's difficult for you to say how you feel. And this is often true with empaths. You could begin to tell yourself that when it's really important, you always say it the right way, and everyone wants to listen. It's probably true anyway. So for inner practices, you may want to meditate, you may want to chant, you may want to do yoga, you may want to simply think about what is my inner self? What would it be like if my world opened up and this part of me was there? Okay, let's talk about expanding our consciousness. So we focus on good feelings, thoughts, and energy to expand consciousness. This is one of the very odd things that I've learned about manifestation at this particular time and points. At this point in time and space, you have to constantly focus on good things coming into you. Abundance, financial abundance, looking good, feeling good, having people compliment you, having people give you gifts. If you don't focus on good things flowing in, they just seem not to happen or they dwindle off. Okay, as you expand your life by focusing on the inner self, There's like this harmony or rhythm or flow that life responds to and other people respond to. And it feels really good. Everybody has different ways of knowing they're in the flow. I've noticed that my body feels lighter. It's easier for me to do things and I move more quickly. I've noticed that more people say hello to me when I go places. There usually isn't very much traffic at all, regardless of what time it is. And if I have to go into a store or make phone calls for work, people are very positive. So that's how I know that it's working. So create some balance between your spiritual and physical life. We all know that one. Allow universal energy to guide you and teach you about your inner self. So what does that mean? It means that you'll feel a specific energy when you're meditating or you're tuning into your beauty and your goodness. When you feel that beauty and goodness, ask the energy, what should I be doing now? And you'll get a whole variety of answers at different times. You can ask that question all day long. Be open to evolution and growth. So I'll say this a different way. Certainly, I want growth and I work very hard to have growth and to see life differently. But I have to remember that I'm evolving. That means changing. That means leaving things behind. It means learning how to do things in new ways. It means not always getting to do what my mind or my emotions want me to do. Evolving is also learning how to say your truth to people in a different way. So we all create our life through actions, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, and beliefs. Whenever we can change the flow of consciousness, like just now, I hope that you're feeling peaceful and calm, life changes. Everybody is already creating their life to some degree. So shouldn't we all try to move it in a positive direction? So we'll just do a very brief manifestation exercise. Think of one thing that you would really like to have in your life, just one thing. So go to the heart, feel that heart chakra. Let pink light come in. Visualize and hold good feelings. Ask the universe to help. Feel that additional light when you ask the universe to help. And see it as if it's happening now. So I'm going to visualize, I'm going to make my visualization for other people. And I'm going to visualize that more and more people feel peace and love and come into harmony with their inner self. And just breathe that in along with any picture that you're holding. And feel your heart guiding you into that image. And come back. So we can all have a more positive impact on our life and on the universe at large through powerful choice. Focusing on your inner self through meditation, visualization, and remembering that quiet place that you just felt within yourself. You can alter emotion through observation, color, and believing in a different outcome. And one of the oddest spiritual truths that I ever discovered is that not all emotions are real. So what if we're feeling a huge amount of emotion, but we find out that the circumstance that we were focused on wasn't real, or something marvelously happy comes in? Emotions change in waves. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes a day to visualize the life you want to create, or you could just spend 5 or 10 minutes while you're doing things, saying, I want peace, I want connection, I want awakening. Emphasize the positive in your life and say it to other people. And so I hope that this has helped you. to find out a little more about ways of creating peace and less stress within you, you can find me or even write to me, onetrueself@gmail.com, onetrueself@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, onetrueself.com. I offer classes, I offer a newsletter, I do meditations, lots of things. And so please feel free to get in touch with me.